You're now listening to Sanity at the Movies, Insufferable Disney Reboot Edition. It's tipping my hand a little bit there. Hey everybody, my name's Nathan, your humble and immediate host. We've got Jake Menzel, Pastor Jake over there. How you doing, Jake?
Fine, how are you?
Okay, we just got out of The Lion King. Disney's...
I thought we watched Milo and Otis.
Yeah. I guess we're getting right into it, huh? Yeah. My girlfriend's comment, or my fiance... I guess we're getting married in 3 weeks, so she's pretty fiance.
Homeward Bound Part 4?
Yeah. She said, her comment was, it would have been pretty good if they just took out the dialogue. And I think she might be right, actually. If your brain was allowed to just be like, oh, this is kind of a cool...
I thought that...
special effects nature
I thought that
thing.
really early on. Especially the first act. Mm-hmm. It felt like a BBC production where they were like telling the story of these lions out in the wild, or a Milo and Otis story where they got cats doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just decided to piece together a story over it. Or, you know, like that might have been better.
Yeah, I mean, knowing that this is all CGI is really impressive, but also the net effect is we just watched photorealistic lions do lion stuff with a soundtrack from a movie that we all like playing over it.
And then I couldn't quite tell if I liked it better or worse for the fact that they were very aware of the problem. And so a lot of the movie, a lot of the dialogue happened with characters' backs turned. Did you notice how much of that happened?
I made myself not notice because it was started to irritate me early on, or I knew it was going to, and I said, okay, you should give this movie
I just kept puzzling over whether or not that was smart or stupid.
Well, I feel like the Jeff Goldblum speech from Jurassic Park is apropos here. We were so worried about whether we could do this that we never stopped to think about
whether or not we should.
And then we packaged it. We wrapped it with a bow and packaged it.
I mean, honestly, there is absolutely nothing about this movie to commend it over the original.
Well, it's fascinating. Okay, so let's just take a step back and explain what we're talking about, because maybe if somebody has no context, I'm guessing if somebody has seen a trailer and had suspicions of the same thing that we are sort of circling right now, like buzzards circling a lion carcass, then they will know basically what we're getting at, but we should explain. The movie is all CGI, actually, but it's photorealistic.
It's very photorealistic CGI, and it's anatomically correct, and I don't mean that. And I just mean like the lions can only open their mouths the way that lions can. They can only move their bodies the way that lions can.
The birds can only... Yeah.
The birds can only move their beaks the way birds can. The warthog and meerkat can only do warthog and meerkat things. The baboon can only do baboon things.
Now, I'm guessing if Mr. Jon Favreau, the director, was here, he'd say that's not quite true.
No, they bent it a little bit.
We bent it, and we bent it to tell our story. And we bent it really subtly. And probably his idea was it'd look all photorealistic, but it would tell a very human, emotional story. But it didn't work because what I kept thinking of was Grand Moff Tarkin from Rogue One, the CGI, Uncanny Valley Grand Moff Tarkin that can't quite emote properly.
I was less bothered by that.
Well, imagine a whole movie of
that.
Just those characters. Let me imagine if Rogue One was all...
It would have been better.
Yeah, no, it would have been, because at least the CGI can badly emote. A CGI person has the features, but it's like the lions... I kept remembering images from, like for example, the scene where Mufasa disciplined Simba in the original. I just saw it, which was a mistake. But it was actually playing at your house, and me and Meredith.
It was my mistake.
Yeah, but I paid for it because you didn't sit there and watch it. I did, but I watched like 20 minutes of it, and so the scene, it's very striking and a very emotional scene. You know, I need to teach my son a lesson, and then Simba comes up and he puts his paw. And in the original,
it cuts to Simba's face.
Simba's looks sad, and then he looks scared, and then and then Mufasa looks really stern. And then when the turn comes and they start being playful, nobody can mess with your dad. And then he gets this big, warm grin on his face and they start playing tug of war. And it's like, that was all lost. And the dialogue was all the same and it was all well performed. But just imagine two basically emotionless animals.
It still got emotion out of me. I still was a little weepy in that scene.
Oh, that's the thing. But
yeah.
As a product, it kind of works because I know the story. I know the beats and they mean something to me. I grew up with them. And even if I didn't, it's a good story.
Yep.
And the dialogue's well performed. Like, if you just listen to this as a radio play.
I kept thinking that too. I kept thinking, well, we're in podcasting, so I kept thinking, and this is how I decided that I really think the casting was
spot on.
It was as perfect as you could want. A really great cynical use of Beyonce.
Yeah.
Donald Glover was great. Kid Simba was great. And I really dug Scar, and I didn't think that I would. And maybe you disagree with that.
Well, I missed Jeremy Irons, and who can blame me? But I wasn't sure I agreed with what they did with Scar. They made him it's kind of like what they did with Jafar and Aladdin. They brought him down to earth, made him fairly psychologically real, as opposed to a little more mustache twirling the way that Jeremy Irons did it.
Scar was never that mustache twirling, though.
No, he was always. I mean, Scar.
He was weak.
Can we say Scar best villain of the Disney animated oeuvre?
I'm not prepared to come down hard on that, but Scar is definitely up there.
He's got to be in the top 3.
Scar's really great. Yeah.
He's great. And the weakness, the jealousy. Yeah, you're right. He is not a mustache twirling villain, but he does have this rich Jeremy Irons irony, a monkey's uncle kind of feeling.
Yeah,
he has a sense of humor, which I missed in this guy. This guy was
he was much more
menacing and low key
and dry, like
a little bit more. He was
more angry,
more of a thug than Jeremy Irons was, which was fine. I'm guessing all the children in the audience were scared, although, man, we had an audience of children.
Oh, my goodness. I've never been in a movie theater with such an annoying audience of children. That's the truth, man. I mean, I've been in lots of kids' movies with lots of kids and rows of kids, but, man, there was the row directly behind us.
And the row in front of us.
The row, 2 rows in front of us down on the left? It was amazing. I couldn't believe it.
Well, and I kind of thought the reason probably that you haven't been in an audience with kids like this is because generally I think movies probably would hold a kid's attention a little bit more than... I don't know. That's just my theory. Maybe that's too hard on the movie. I know your kids liked it, and I think kids probably will basically like it, especially if they're familiar with the original.
But man, these kids were all over the place. They couldn't sit still. They were kicking every seat.
Yeah.
They were talking. They were yelling, they were crying, they were fighting. It wasn't just like this was like the one terrible family behind us. First of all, I think it was a couple of families in a row together behind us.
Yeah.
And then it was also the kids in the 2 rows ahead of us were the same way.
Yeah, this one kid just wandered off at a certain point.
Walking around, jumping, crawling over seats, like banging, throwing their trash around. Like, my goodness, it was... And I think you're probably right. I think I didn't attribute it to that. I just thought
these are some ill-mannered.
We just happened to be in the theater with a bunch of ill-mannered children.
I think that's true, but I also think that a really good children's movie can hold
would have tamed them better than this movie did. Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, and when you think about it from a kid's point of view, you think about the original. It's so bright, it's so colorful. There's a lot of comedy going on. You know, even in the scary scenes, the hyenas are grabbing Zazu and making him into a rocket. You know, there's always something like that going on, which is what a great Disney movie is always great at doing. This one had long sections where it's just these fairly realistic lions talking about adult things without a lot of stuff that I would really think would be all that relatable to a 4-year-old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A 4-year-old is going to like animation just because it's animated, like the bright colors,
colorful,
the movement.
Moving. Yeah.
You know what the other thing is? This is going to be kind of a scattershot discussion maybe, but Can You Feel the Love Tonight happened during the day.
Yeah, I know. It blew my mind. I couldn't believe they did that.
That was really weird.
Why? That's the most bizarre decision I've ever... It was like, they didn't even make it sunset. Like, it was like at the middle of the day.
Yeah, it kind of looked like golden hour, you know? That magic hour, whatever they call it, where the sun is perfect, 5 o'clock-ish.
Yeah,
but
it did look a little like that, but
it really didn't have that dusky feeling either.
If they would have just put some purples in the sky, even know, but it was blue sky.
Which was, again, this is an all CGI movie. It's not like they got there on the day and they couldn't get the right sky. Somebody made a choice.
Well, it makes you wonder, but it really doesn't, because so much of, the only thing I could think is they simply made a decision of, hey, so much of this movie happens in darkness and bleak places. We need more color.
That's interesting. But even the bleak places were kind of drab, realistic bleak and not spooky, scary Disney villain bleak. Like the elephant graveyard actually happened during the day, that scene.
Yeah.
And they made
But it was dark.
Yeah, they made it spooky, but it wasn't.
There's some jump scares there.
Yeah, there were some jump scares. I'm not going to say they did a bad job. You can tell in this between this and the Jungle Book, you can tell Favreau likes the dark stuff and likes the exciting stuff. That's what appeals to him about these movies.
I guess this movie makes me appreciate the Jungle Book more. I've not seen it since it came out in theaters, and I didn't like it.
No, me neither.
But it was trying to do something, and this movie was just like, yeah.
I remember connecting. I mean, I didn't like Bill Murray's Baloo, but I basically bought him. Like, I basically emotionally connected to him as you're supposed to connect to a character. Whereas watching this movie is like watching a movie through a screen or something, you know, like you could never really quite get into it the way you wanted to because the characters just couldn't emote. You could actually bifurcate this either way. You could remove all the dialogue and just make it kind of a cool, weird nature documentary kind of thing. Or you could listen to the soundtrack and hear these wonderful actors perform the stuff. The music was really well performed. This was like, I'd say of all the Disney movies that have redone the original scores, this one, they finally had some like actual singers.
Yeah, I don't care for Beyonce's singing style, but I thought that she was used well throughout the whole movie. Like I said at the beginning, a really great cynical use of Beyonce, in my opinion.
Yeah, she was used well. Donald Glover was
great. Kid Simba
had a nice great voice altogether.
Billy Eichner and
Seth
Rogen were really great.
Yeah, they were funny. I mean, I guess people will probably notice that Timon is
pretty gay.
What they would call queer-coded, even more than the original. But it's not like the original was exactly...
this is like...
There's a difference.
There's a clear difference. But it was still at least a unique direction to take.
Yeah, and I liked their banter, you know, saying that the slugs were locally sourced. There was some cute stuff in there. But...
Be Our Guest.
Be Our Guest was funny.
I loved that part.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious. I don't care. Come at me.
I liked it.
Is it probably the only thing that actually got a really nice smile or chuckle out of me?
That got a smile, and their rendition of In the Jungle was kind of cool.
In the Jungle was
just
fun.
For something different.
And they did a really nice job of setting up that jump scare.
Yes.
With the way that, you know, they kept adding animals to it, kept making it more and more interesting. It kept building. It was still building when they did the jump scare, and that was just really fun.
Right.
And I felt my kids next to me jump.
Yeah.
And so that was fun.
That's fun. You know, I had a thought returning to the overall concept of this. These are the kinds of weird things I think about in the shower. I was thinking about the Beauty and the Beast movie for some dumb reason. And I was thinking about the fact that all the little, not animals, but all the little household objects work so well as animated characters. And yet Be Our Guest really falls flat in the original in the new Beauty and the Beast, the Emma Watson one. And I suddenly imagined, what if they had just had the courage to jettison the idea of household objects and they had just cast all those parts with dancers and people that could perform? Suddenly you'd have a magnificent Be Our Guest, actually. Yeah. If you actually had just like real people doing an old-fashioned
number.
Yeah, and I think the reason I bring that up is it's another example of, I don't know, it's not really the right use of the uncanny valley, but it's when you're taking something that was pure artifice in the original and you're trying to make it more realistic. There's this uncomfortable region where you need to either make it completely realistic or
reimagine
it.
Which it looks like they're going to do with Mulan.
Yeah, Mulan looks like, I've never really cared for that animated thing, but it looks like they're being smart about the way they're adapting it. They're just making it the Mulan story. They're not bothering with probably the music or the Eddie Murphy character or anything like that.
Yeah. Mushu,
which is smart, I think, because who wants to see an animated musical version of that story just redone from the original? No,
It'd be boring.
You want to see Mulan. You want to just see that story told with modern live action technology. Or you don't. I don't actually want to see that story told.
Well,
but
yeah.
If you do, then I think that's what you want to see. But I was thinking, you know, as my fiancé would say, I have a constellation of thoughts, and I don't know how to put them all together. But I was also thinking about how exaggerated the movement is in a Disney cartoon. Like the style that Disney and Looney Tunes perfected back in the 30s, 40s is exaggerated. Nobody actually moves like a human being.
Yep.
And then you have things like Polar Express and all that Robert Zemeckis Christmas Carol kind of stuff.
I never liked any of that stuff.
Yeah, and it's off-putting because they're using motion capture, and so they're moving realistically. And it's like, you don't actually want your animated characters to be all that realistic. And this is the problem that I think The Lion King is kind of...
If you're going to do that, just
do a live action.
Do live action.
The whole point of a cartoon is
they can do things that people can't.
And it can tell a story. I think a cartoon can get... I don't want to get too... what's the word? Too grandiose about this, but I could start talking about like platonic forms or something, you know, like a cartoon can get at the essence of a mythic kind of story. A cartoon character can stand in for all of us in the way that a specific actor can't.
It's what grotesques do, right?
Right,
like
exactly.
In literature, it's what Dickens did.
Right.
That's what cartoons do on screen.
Right.
Is they're able to, by exaggerating, by being caricatures, by being cartoons,
right?
they're able to magnify traits or things about all of us that allow us to enter in and see ourselves in it without being made to feel too uncomfortable about it because
it's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon.
Well, and so when Mufasa dies in the cartoon, it's like every dad, your dad, my dad, every dad just died. And I'm the little boy and I'm curling up. And it doesn't matter that it's a lion cub and a lion. In this one, it's like, oh, well, that lion died. You know, it's like, it's sad and it still kind of gets me. It basically kind of works,
I guess. Still got my kids. They all cried.
I teared up.
Well, they came out of the gate slow. It was dumb. Like, we fade to a scene and then the music starts and it's understated. And I'm just like, let down, let down, let down, let down from the very beginning.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying about why Scar worked for you, but that's kind of the feeling I had even about him is he comes out and he's going to do everything with just a little less flourish than the old Scar did, and everything's going to feel a little slower and more stately and less funny and less vibrant than it used to. And it was, you know, I know it's not fair, but you know what? Actually, it is fair to compare that to the old one. I mean, they're asking for me to compare it to the old one, aren't they?
Yeah, of course they are. Yeah, they are asking you to.
And I don't know how this would work as a standalone movie. I don't know whether it would work as a standalone movie, but that's not for me to judge. I grew up with the old one.
Yep.
What this one kept feeling, I'm glad you said that about the music feeling more subdued.
It really did.
Because it really did. It was just like, and I know all those cues, even just the random background music in the old one. Like, yep. I know it. I know what music is supposed to accompany them, him showing Simba the Pride Lands and giving the speech about Circle of Life, and they almost needed to just switch some of that stuff up because they kept rubbing the comparison in my face by being so close. It's like if they just...
Well, but it would have been, if they didn't, we would have felt it more because the fact is the music carried a whole lot of the emotion.
That's true.
And we would be in here ripping them to pieces if they didn't do that.
You're absolutely right. And the one part where they took a risk with Be Prepared and did something that was off from the original, you can argue about whether Scar is the greatest villain, but Be Prepared... I am prepared to say is the greatest Disney villain song of all time. Although Ursula has a nice one and Gaston has a nice one, and I'm sure others have nice ones. So that was a little bit disappointing that they didn't lean into.
They left in those villain songs and laughs, don't they?
What's that?
They left in those villain songs and cackles.
Yes.
Scar ends his song and he and all the hyenas start cackling.
Yep, and I can't imagine Ursula doesn't. Although maybe she doesn't because Ariel's actually there, so she has to have, what's her, poor unfortunate souls.
Flotsam, jetsam, now I got 'em, boys. The boss is on a roll.
Yeah, probably does cackle at the end of that.
She does.
She
does. I remember now.
Yeah, this Scar, you know, he was good. He was good, but he was.
Yeah, she's laughing the whole time she's signing the thing.
Yeah.
She's just cackling.
Yeah, that's my criticism. It's not really a criticism of Scar, but it's just I miss villains that just delight in being villains. It's the thing that's wonderful about Palpatine, and if Abrams messes that up and makes Palpatine, I don't think he will. Because
he won't. He'll get it right.
Everybody wants to see, and Abrams is nothing if not.
He's very aware that what Palpatine represents is gleeful evil.
Malevolence.
Yeah.
But there again, Star Wars is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The new ones, you got Kylo Ren and you got Snoke, and they're both angsty, serious, adult kind of villains in their different ways. And I miss that. You know, I'm glad they're bringing Palpatine back. Maybe they'll course correct here at the last minute. Too late.
I I might have been helped with Scar by knowing the actor, having looked it all up beforehand.
I don't know the actor.
I can't say his name. I don't know how to pronounce it.
The Ito.
It's Mordo from Doctor Strange.
Oh, interesting.
I may have been helped by just sort of. I thought he did a great job actually as Mordo in Doctor Strange. I don't really
remember who Mordo is. Which one's Mordo?
He's the guy who's gonna be Doctor Strange's friend.
Is he the guy that's set up as the antagonist for Doctor Strange 2?
Yes.
Like the other guy that's working for the Chosen One or whatever.
The Ancient One.
The Ancient One, yeah.
Yeah, he's the guy who's there, who lets him in off the street, talks to him, who sort of like is his buddy as they go through. And
if I may be so bold, the black guy.
The black
from
guy,
Doctor
yeah,
Strange.
That's right. Yep, that's him.
Okay, yeah, he's good in that.
I thought he was good in that, and I think I was just sort of, not we pointed out that he's black. What's a way of saying that he brought more color to the to the performance, possibly?
Can I just leave that in? Because I actually felt like the whole movie was helped by having people of color in those parts, actually. I actually really liked that change.
That whole vibe.
It just felt more African.
Yeah. And that was...
Which was cool.
Some of my favorite parts of the movie were just like the shots of... when it was just like African scenery.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful stuff.
You know what was cool in that regard? I thought it was really cool, actually. I really liked this touch. The way that Simba's fur, the little journey that his fur goes on, ends up in a dung beetle. It was on the nose. It was kind of like a obvious, like, it's the circle of life and nature.
There were a lot of little seams that Favreau stitched up neatly.
Right.
And that was one of them, although I didn't appreciate the dung beetle aspect of it because I thought it was too on the nose. And do we have to have every bit of butt humor possible in a movie?
Yeah, that was too bad. But, I'm going to go ahead and say that having Donald Glover and whoever played Simba...
Donald Glover was awesome, and the kid Simba was awesome. He did a great job, whoever that kid is.
And they really add a more mythic Africa feeling than stupid Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Matthew Broderick. Talk about two white bread, as white as they come actors.
Yeah.
Just a Wonder Bread sandwich there. So that was nice. And I didn't mind Beyonce. I don't mind Beyonce singing.
I'm not sure how I feel about Rafiki. We'll just say I liked Rafiki's "He Lives in You" Mufasa thing, but Rafiki had some pretty hack moments. Like my old friend was pretty hack.
Oh yeah, that was stupid. So if you haven't seen the movie, he pulls out. I don't think he's had his staff.
He's not shown his staff the entire time. Then he pulls out his staff right before the battle, right. And it has a moment of looking at it and it's my old friend. And
here's the thing I don't like about that. It's not self-contained within the movie.
Exactly.
The only reason that means anything, it's like when in the new Star Trek 2 Into Darkness, when Benedict Cumberbatch says, "My name is Khan," and then everyone's like, and it's like, Khan's nothing in this universe. The only reason that that's important is because it means something to us from another movie. And this was the same thing. Like the only reason that staff is resonant is not because of anything they've done to build it in this movie. It's because we remember something old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know how I felt about Rafiki. He was fine, I guess. Same problem as everybody else. Just couldn't quite enter into him.
They did some things that just were smarter. The whole gorge, Scar takes Simba to the gorge scene was much better written in this version. In the old version, Scar takes Simba to the gorge and just says, "Wait here on this rock. Your father's got a marvelous surprise for you."
Yeah, if Scar had drawn a target on the ground, like a big red circle around Simba, it wouldn't be. Yeah, it would hardly be less obvious than what he does in the animated one.
Yeah, and it doesn't set up Simba to feel responsible in the way that what he did in the new one did.
Yes, that's true.
Which is, I mean, they have him practicing his roar and then the stampede, and that's all there sort of in the first one. But in this one, what you need to do is practice your roar until it reaches over the tops of the canyons, and and that's when you'll be a man or a lion and no longer a cub, and I'll have to take you seriously and practice your roar. And
it had been setting up even more Simba's desire to be taken seriously, which it was more. That was just more a point was made. More made of that in this one.
So then when Simba finally succeeds in achieving the thing that he turns into a stampede, he's going to feel like this was all my fault because I wanted to grow up. Like, it's going to connect more. It's all my fault. I wanted to grow up. I wanted to be king. I wanted to to prove that I was ready for this.
Right.
And I got my dad killed by doing that. Like, almost happened the first time in the elephant graveyard. Now it happened with me practicing my roar. I really did it. Like, that was smart. That was nicely done. I wish the original had done that. It's the only thing less than perfect about the original.
Mm-hmm.
That and the idea that Rafiki's going to get some lion-scented flower petals that travel across the desert.
Yeah.
Versus seeing hair from a lion's mane.
Although I can see an argument. You could argue that the original is better with that, because the original is just like, it's magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Rafiki felt the stirring in the force.
He's got some mystical medicine man tricks.
Right.
Turn it around in his bowl and...
Yeah, this one wanted to make it more like, it's planet Earth. This is how things happen. It's like, no, they don't. Hamlet doesn't usually play out in the Africa savannah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Amp up the feminism of the lionesses.
That it was definitely in there. Yeah. Well, not as much as I expected, though.
No, I think that Favreau, he's smart.
Yeah, he's smart.
I mean, I think that there's a way that you can cast Beyonce and make her obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
But even like you cast Beyonce, you got to give Beyonce a song more than Can You Feel the Love Tonight. That little song that was just this like subtle, it was actually just a subtle interlude piece.
Yeah, just like this weird gospel B-side from Beyonce, which I liked. Okay.
Well, it was fine. It was there and it was over, and it wasn't like Beyonce is in your face distracting you from the fact that this is a Lion King movie this is one of the biggest pop R&B stars of the past 30 years.
Right.
Doing her signature vocal modulations over, like...
Yeah, nor was it, we have to give this character more screen time like Aladdin's stupid song for Jasmine.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you can get away with casting somebody like Beyonce that's going to put butts in seats and keep it from being a distraction, use her well, then... Yeah. That's pretty great. And he did just a lot of things like that were smart.
Yeah, he didn't, as far as the feminism and all that sort of stuff goes.
Yeah, that's where I was headed toward, yeah.
He knows what makes the story work, and he's not going to mess it up.
He's not going to mess up this. He's not going to sacrifice this story on the altar of an ideal and agenda. He will amp up the agenda here and there
where he can,
where it won't mess up his story, but he's not going to mess up the story.
Simba's still the king. Nala still has to be supportive.
Sarabi is still
the mom.
Yep. All that's the lionesses have to be in support of their man.
Right.
Like, all of that's there, and they can be a little more proactive here and there, a little more aggressive here and there, a little more feel the wrath of the lionesses, like,
right.
They can make the villains matriarchal.
Right.
Which they did. One of the guards from Wakanda play Shinzi.
Oh, I thought that's who that was.
Yeah, I forget. The names all run together.
Yeah, I'm sure feminists would probably agree with me on this one, but I really hate the trope of the guy is fighting the villain, and then there's a girl villain that's perfectly matched for the girl, and they have to have a fight. I just always think that's silly.
It's pretty lame.
I mean, I don't even, entirely apart from whether we need to have our females fighting at all, but I just always think that that's kind of a silly story move.
Yep.
Oh, there's a character that was perfectly designed and exists just to have a fight with
with Nala. With Beyonce.
With Beyonce. Yeah. But yeah, he didn't.
Cat fight.
Yeah.
So
I'll leave a little space in here so that the audience can fully appreciate the cat fight comment that you just made. People are like,
they went over their heads.
They don't know what to do. They're holding their phones in awestruck wonder right now.
I'm so clever. And that is why I am in a podcast studio in the middle of a cornfield.
Yep, exactly.
And not playing across theaters nationwide right now.
Yep. But you know what is playing in theaters nationwide is The Lion King, and that's what we're here discussing. Milo Notice. Yeah, man. That's not a bad analogy, really.
Homeward Bound Part 3.
But those movies always got emotion out of me, and it's either because I was a dumb kid.
Shadow,
yeah. Oh, Peter, I missed you so.
Played by Megatron or
I don't know. There again, if you just have the voiceover and the animal, it's like my brain can put those two together. It's obviously artifice. You know, you have to know when to be artificial and when to be realistic. And this whole movement towards realism for realism's sake should never be the goal, because it's actually impossible in art. I submit to you, Jake, that art is artifice, and that the only person that can actually tell a story that has the infinite variety of life is our creator, who tells a story called creation. But art,
I agree.
Art by its very nature is making choices, making selection, choosing what to include and what not to include. And so that's what animation does. That's what movies do. That's what stories do. So to say we have achieved perfectly realistic lions, as if that means anything, it's like, okay, what did you do with them? And why? And what did that get you?
Yeah.
And did you ever stop to ask the question?
Should we have?
You packaged it. You wrapped it in a bow. I can never remember Jeff Goldblum's actual speech there, but it comes up and it circles through my brain quite a bit. One day they'll probably do CGI Jeff Goldblum, and he'll look just like the real Jeff Goldblum.
Except he'll look more realistic than the real Jeff Goldblum.
More realistic than the Jeff Goldblum.
I mean, they are getting better and better at that stuff, and that is part of why you do a project like this, is to push forward the tech.
Yeah, and I think if you see interviews and stuff with Favreau, that's what he's interested in. I think this is just me reading between the lines. Everybody's probably awesome.
Well, it's one of the... there was a pun in the movie.
There was.
Like that. I forget what it was.
Yes. My fiance gave it 2 out of 4, she said. It feels to me like Favreau could care less about this story, but he knew it was a surefire hit, and it would give him an excuse to play with some really fun technology and push things forward.
Well, and I also suspect he didn't have much of a choice.
Well, yeah, he's nothing if not a company man at this point. I mean, he was interesting around the time that Iron Man 1 came out. He was interesting, and since then he's just done project after project.
I'm interested in his Mandalorian. I think it'll be good.
But I think it will be a company man's project, just like most Disney things are.
But it'll at least be smart storytelling.
Yeah, and it's in the TV universe, which they traditionally have had their
little
grubby
more hands off. Yeah,
executive hands off.
A little more freedom there.
Yeah, the leash is less tight there. What else is there to say about this movie? The music was good.
I guess I should have said young Nala was fine too. She just wasn't that as...
No, but I liked her singing voice. I thought my favorite number was probably Just Can't Wait to Be King. I thought it was nice. That was an example. That was actually an example of what, if they'd found a way to do things like that through the whole movie, where they're kind of giving you the same thing, but actually finding a successful way to switch it up and make it a little different.
More interesting, or not more interesting necessarily, but yeah, it was sort of, we're at this tiny watering hole and we're all going to form an animal pyramid that's going to fall on Zazu. Right. You know, it's just like this menagerie of creatures that are just trying to get lost in the midst of it. That was a fun idea.
Well, and having just watched the original, actually when we watched the original, my fiance said, how are they going to do this in live action? That was the one thing that she really was asking about. And the reason is because it's completely stylized. The colors behind, remember some of the jumps, and then the whole thing turns purple and then it turns blue. And then the animals are suddenly very stylized. They almost look like Hirschfeld drawings. Is that 1920s caricature guy?
Yeah.
And then they're all doing the big Buzzley Berkeley kind of dance routine where they're all stacked on top of each other. And it's just like, the animals don't actually behave that way in the rest of the movie. Generally speaking, the animals...
Generally speaking, unless they're a lion or a hyena or Timon and Pumbaa.
Or Zazu, yeah.
Or Zazu. Outside of those characters, the rest of the animals are animals.
Right.
They act like animals.
But animation, of course, has the elasticity to just be like, all right, it's the musical number. Now everything's completely stylized and silly.
Yep.
And that's fine. And somehow we're going to trick Zazu by staging a giant musical number so a rhinoceros will sit on him and we can escape, which makes no logical sense, but makes perfect emotional sense when you watch the movie.
Yep.
And so they had to figure out a way to do that. They had to figure out a way to achieve those plot points and achieve a fun musical number using just photorealistic animals, not doing things that are too stylized. They actually did a pretty nice job.
Yep.
So that was nice.
It's fine.
But then Be Prepared was underwhelming. Like, Be Prepared was, we had this stylized lava's breaking out. It suddenly becomes Hades.
The other thing is that we had pre-existing relationship with the hyenas.
Right.
And this was where I am now forging an alliance with the hyenas. Plot-wise, it's different. What is trying to happen there?
I didn't really care for the hyenas in this one, I have to say. I mean, they were fine, I guess, but the combination of funny, scary, how threatening they are versus how just felt off to me somehow. Maybe it's just being a 6-year-old or whatever I was when the original came off. They felt really scary and really funny. These ones just kind of felt, but mundane scary. Like they felt like stormtroopers. They didn't have a lot of personality.
I didn't mind that. There were two that had a little shtick about personal space throughout the film.
Yeah.
It was
cute.
fine.
It was fine, but it was no Ed.
They didn't have names. Yeah, there's no Ed.
It was no Ed and Cheech and Chong, whatever that guy's name is. We don't got no stinking entree. I guess they wanted to lean away from horrible racist stereotypes, probably. You know what the other dumb thing about this movie was? When you have photorealistic animals, they kind of all look the same. Like, I couldn't tell you what the difference, if you just showed me pictures between who Nala is and who Sarabi is.
Yeah.
They just look like lionesses. Same thing for the hyenas. That was one of the reasons why the hyenas maybe didn't stand out to me that much, is they just looked like...
Keegan-Michael Key was one of the...
I thought I recognized him. Plus, he's in everything these days.
Florence Kasumba was Shinzi. She played Io, the security chief, I think, in Black Panther. And in J.D. McCrary. Props to that kid. That's young Simba.
He did a good job.
Shahadi Wright Joseph, young Nala.
She did a nice job, too, although she didn't have much to do.
T'Chaka, King T'Chaka was Rafiki.
That makes sense. I was wondering about that. Not wondering, just wondering who it was.
I am afraid to try to say Scar's name, though. Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Based on both The Jungle Book and The Lion King. When Favreau has something iconic, does he ever try to outdo it? Or is his modus operandi always to underdo it? I submit to you, what he always does in both The Jungle Book and The Lion King now is, we're not going to try and outdo Jeremy Irons. We're going to come up with the subtle version of what Jeremy Irons was doing. We're not going to try and outdo Baloo. We're going to get Bill Murray to do a very subtle. We're not going to try and outdo anything. We're just, it's the music being more subdued. It's the
interesting way of thinking about it.
Which I think is pretty smart, actually. I mean, I don't necessarily like it.
I think it's smart, but it certainly is also risk averse.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but it makes sense. If you think about it that way, you understand why they did Scar the way. It's like nobody's going to top Jeremy Irons in the.
It was my biggest concern coming. I actually had listened to Be Prepared on Spotify before.
That probably helped.
Yeah,
that was the big disappointment of the movie for me.
I had listened to it, so I knew what to expect with it. I listened to it on Spotify beforehand because my biggest concern, I think, heading into the movie was Scar.
Right.
I don't know. I think maybe altogether my concern about Scar, how are you going to live up to Jeremy Irons, having really thought that through. Like, how do you live up to Jeremy Irons? Who do you cast? How do you make this work?
Well, they did the smartest thing. Let's not try.
I mean, I think I had already concluded that myself. It was like, hey, you just better not try for that.
Right.
So I think it set me up to really like what they did with Scar, but to each his own. And I can't fault anybody for being disappointed with not Jeremy Irons, because
Jeremy Irons is pretty great.
I mean, every time I see Jeremy Irons in a thing, we just watched him play Henry for the book ending.
Yeah.
You know, my first thought is, there's Scar. Every time he opens his mouth, I'm hearing Scar. Because you know what? As a kid, the voice of Scar was just like...
absolutely iconic.
As iconic as it comes. He will never not be Scar.
Right.
In my mind, I was 8 or 9 or whatever, and that's who Scar is.
And Scar, for me at least, was a really... I wouldn't just say critically now he's the best villain, but back then he felt like one of the best villains because he was scary in a way that was new to me. He was a psychologically rich villain that I don't think I'd seen before. I think he was one of my first introductions to, oh, this is a villain that has a particular point of view and you can kind of understand it even though it's completely evil. And he's motivated by things that you as a kid, like jealousy, have felt. And, you know, it's not like just Jafar is just a villain, you know, like, oh no, a dark sorcerer. Like there's nothing relatable about him for a kid. He's just a scary other thing. Mm-hmm. He's just a bad guy from a fairy tale. And same thing for a lot of those Disney villains. But Scar felt much more insidious and much more down to earth in a way that was compelling. Well, I don't suppose there's any more meat we're going to get off of this carcass. Ho, ho, ho.
Nope.
Anything else you want to say about this? Hakuna Matata was fine.
Hakuna Matata was fine.
A little underwhelming, but how, again...
But it's interesting it was going to be interesting to hear how young J.D. McCrary and Donald Glover were going to handle it. And, to see, in the original, Jonathan Taylor Thomas plays young Simba, but he doesn't sing.
Right.
They got a no name with a voice
right.
to cover for him. It's nice when they keep that straight.
Cast was good. The singing was good. No, not a auto-tune Will Smith or an auto-tuned Emma Watson type deal to be found here. Everybody could hold their own, except for Scar, and they wrote something for him that he could perform, I guess.
That's my kind of... Donald Glover, smart, savvy person. Don't have to like him, but gotta respect him.
Yeah, he is. He is very smart. I always feel like... I always have this feeling that he's not quite giving us all of him, though, which I resent a little bit. I don't know how to explain it other than that, but there's some performers, like Beyonce, for example. She's giving, like... She's giving everything that she has, and you may think it's stupid, you may think it's wonderful, but either way, like, what you see is kind of what you get.
Yeah.
I always feel like, I always just have this feeling, whether it's Childish Gambino or a TV show or anything that I've seen Donald Glover
he's holding back.
It just always feels like he's holding back. When I see him in interviews,
who's the real Donald Glover, actually?
Yes, and. Yeah. I probably don't know who the real Beyonce is, but the key is that I think I do. You know what I mean? I may not know who the real Robert Downey Jr. is, but I think I do.
Well, but that is his...
I know. That's his
thing. That's his mask. That's his... Beyonce's mask is she's got a Beyonce mask that she wears, and Donald Glover's mask is what is really going on behind here.
Yeah, well, I don't like it. I resent it a little bit because it's
Did you feel it in the film?
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether that's just me bringing my knowledge of Donald Glover or... Well,
I just thought...
That's not to say he wasn't great, by the way.
His
singing's good.
Was really tasteful at every turn. I just felt like... I mean, like, Beyonce did some things that I didn't like because she's Beyonce, and somebody told Beyonce that the thing to do is to modulate her voice 5,000 different ways all the time.
Right.
And mostly that's just...
you feel...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly that's just really obnoxious, but he's just really like steady and silky smooth, and he's playing off of her, and yet in a way that he somehow still manages to shine.
Yeah, it's really
smart.
He always feels to me to be smart, to be calculated, and tasteful is actually a good word. Even when he's doing something provocative, like that Childish Gambino video that made it around a year or two ago, or whenever it was.
This is America.
Yeah, this is America. It feels like even when he's being a violent, awful provocateur, he's somehow weirdly restrained.
Yeah.
Yeah, tasteful even in a weird way. And I don't care for it.
Yeah, I mean, you can find that music video to be in completely poor taste.
Oh yeah, don't watch it, folks, if you haven't seen it. But it's violent and nasty, and
it's super compelling as well.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know, maybe I do like it. I feel mixed about it because what he does do that very few performers do is by not giving you everything, by holding something back, he makes you want to come to him.
That's right.
That's what's compelling. Is it's like, what's going on here? I want to figure this out. Is the joke on me or is the joke on him? I don't know. But I don't know. I feel like I'm too old and too grumpy for those kinds of games with my celebrities. Like I don't care. Maybe if I was 20 instead of in my 30s, I'd actually like him better. Like I'd be more intrigued by what is the thing. But who cares what the thing is? But he's a very talented man. I'm not trying to argue that he's not.
I want to see him as Uncle Aaron again. Got to bring him back in Spider-Man.
That would be good. He was good in Spider-Man.
The Prowler, isn't that Uncle Aaron?
Yep. You know who he wasn't good in Solo. That's an example of where his holding back quality, I think his restrained quality worked against him because he was playing a character that's not really supposed to be all that restrained, at least not the way that Billy D. Williams played him.
I'm not going to blame any of the actors in that movie for how that movie turned out.
Nope. I'm not either. I don't know whether it was
including
his fault.
Alden Ehrenreich. I'm cutting him all kinds of slack.
Alden Ehrenreich is great. All right. Well, I don't know. Jake, do you recommend this Lion King?
You're going to see it. You're going to want to see for yourself. I think that you should save your money and wait till it comes out.
I think you'll be bored. You might as well be bored at home.
I mean, look, I laughed. I cried all those things, but at the same time, I just thought I would have rather. I literally would have rather they put the original Lion King back on a theater run.
Oh man, that would have been a really magical experience.
To take my kids to see Lion King in theaters would have been really cool and fun. The original, yeah.
And it would have been really moving, like to see it again up on the big screen.
To have that, that opening title stuff on, that would have taken me back. I remember being in the theater with my dad and my brothers seeing that. We're on vacation in Florida. It was a summer release, pretty sure.
Yep. I remember seeing it with my mom and my brothers, and it was the same kind of deal. And that was the movie before it all went to where. 'Cause Pocahontas was next.
Boo.
And then after that, the Disney Renaissance was over. But if you read the history, everybody was interested in Pocahontas. That's the fun part about that story. Like all the animators and creatives, like they all knew that Pocahontas was going to be the classic, and so they were all banking on that. And everybody was asking to be transferred to Pocahontas, and people were just like, "What is this dumb lion movie?" It's exaggerating the story to say, "What is this dumb lion movie?" Because Disney doesn't make things that aren't A-level productions, but the one that everybody thought was going to be the remembered classic was Pocahontas. And oops, The Lion King. Man, what a smart movie that was. The original
Lion King.
Yeah, just taking that level of Shakespearean story and figuring out a way to do it for kids that really works.
And the fun thing, Disney hadn't really. That's not true. I'm going to back that up. Well, in the Renaissance, Disney had given us 2 heroine-driven films.
Yeah.
And then they came around and they gave us 2 hero-driven films.
Aladdin and the Lion King, yep.
And they were well-timed. They all worked really well together.
Yep. And it's just the perfect melding of adult sensibilities with kid sensibilities, I think. You've got The Little Mermaid, where Ariel finally feels like a 3-dimensional, like she feels like a real teenager, and that's the breakthrough of that movie.
Yep.
She's not a perfect little princess, which is an annoying Disney trope at this point, but was pretty interesting back then, actually. And then you've got Beauty and the Beast, which is just tells a mature fairy tale with rich characterizations. And then you've got Aladdin and beautiful animation. And then Aladdin is just a boy's adventure story, and it's really smart. And I think it's the less of those 4, just because.
And the most meta.
It is. It's the most meta. It's the most overtly comic, and it's the least resonant in terms of the emotions, I would say. But maybe that's just me. I know people swear by it. And hey, when I saw the new one, I certainly got a new appreciation for what I liked about the old one. So
I think Aladdin's more emotionally resonant than
I give
Little
it credit
Mermaid.
For.
Than you give it credit for sure. You never felt like
I needed to pretend to be something to impress a girl. Yes, of course. I spent my whole.
You never felt insecure about who you were and where you came from.
Yeah, I guess. But
you never felt like you had to be or become something that you're not in order to be loved.
Yeah, and I was right. Be yourself is a dumb message. No one should be themselves.
Oh, shut up. There's some
people
truth.
Should grow and change.
There's truth in be yourself.
I know. I'm being a jerk. But my only point in really bringing all this up is, in some ways, The Lion King is the culmination of that set. You've got a mature story, an interesting protagonist, and a good hero's journey, and a clever villain, and a good romance, and great songs. It's just the complete package, and it does it all in 80 minutes or whatever it is. And this movie comes along, and it's got to be 2 hours and pad things out with a bunch of stuff. And so you do recommend The Lion King? Don't recommend it? It is inevitable.
I think it's like Thanos. It's inevitable, but I think wait till you get it on Disney Plus or iTunes or whatever, Redbox.
Agreed. And if you're not interested, then
personally, if you're going to spend the money and you haven't shown your kids the original Lion King, you'd be better served, in my opinion, to pay $20 for the original than. But I don't know. I mean, if they've never seen the Lion King, I don't know. You want to have a special moment in the theaters? Maybe it'll work for you. Maybe it'll be great.
Here's how I would put it: if you're not inclined to see it, don't. If you weren't going to go see it anyway, then
don't. But if you were going to see it anyway, then just
your mileage will vary depending.
Your mileage may vary. Yeah.
And
if you really loved it and think that we're wrong about some stuff, let us know. Hit us up.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear a defense. I know some people really like it, but I don't know. I don't feel.
I tend to be the one that wants to defend these sorts of things, and I had nothing. I got nothing. I felt like the lone defender of Aladdin. I think it was, in fact, the lone defender of Aladdin.
Was Ben on that one?
Yeah, because Ben was on that one, and he didn't like it either.
He liked it. I felt like I was the lone attacker. So
really,
yeah,
I felt like the lone defender. Whatever.
Okay, well,
he was in the middle somewhere.
Right,
he was caught in the middle.
He managed to make us
caught between the two titans of.
He managed to what's
neither of us
the
feel
opposite
supported.
of playing both sides against each other. He managed to make us both feel betrayed.
I would see Aladdin again. I'll see it again at home with my whole family.
I will never watch either one of these movies again, probably.
Except that whole feminist thing. I don't know. I don't want to show that to my girls.
Or
my boys.
You just fast forward it.
I think I'll just fast forward it, yeah. Skip it.
Or just mock it.
Mercilessly.
Or have a sweet little parental conversation about how dumb it was at the end. I don't know.
I could just mute it and make a joke about how I made her silent.
I like that. That's the patriarchy in action, folks.
Maybe that's what I'll do.
Jake's actually got a device with a button he can push that will make the woman stop talking. I love it.
Take that.
Yep. We know what Jake's wishing for. All right, folks. We'll see you in not next week, but the week after. Bye.
You got to do
Sanity at the Movies was performed by us, executive produced by us, produced by me. Until next time. You're never prepared for this.
I know this.
This is
remember who you are.
Remember.
Hakuna Matata.
There you go.